Hi there, my name is Hayley and I'm a fiber artist specializing in embroidery. Some of my favorite topics to learn about are science and art history. Both are things that inspire my art and make me want to learn more and more, going down a rabbit hole when I should be doing something else. Today I'm going to be talking about the way our environment directly affects humans and the different solutions we can use to counter them. Although it may seem like the world can be crazy and out of control, it's important to remember that there are things that can be done to help reduce the impact of scary things, and maybe even stop them completely in the case of forest fires. This lesson is made with 4th graders in mind, but if you are a little bit older and want a refresher on some topics, that'd be good as well. The activity is really quick, and it's something you can use in all sorts of different ways.
Let's start with something that has been drastically affecting people who live in California as recently as last year: wildfires. Wildfires can be caused by a number of different factors. When the soil, plants, and air become very dry, a fire is able to spread far out of control. A small fire can light dry shrubs, grass, or even trees and houses on fire and use them as fuel to jump to the next area. While fires can occur naturally from lightning strikes, it is most commonly caused by human interference. During a drought or other dry weather, fires are at most risk of spreading. There is a whole season of increased likelihood of fires where people need to be on watch, called simply wildfire season. It occurs in the late summer and fall most usually. Wildfires can be stopped and prevented a number of different ways. To prevent them on a personal level, people need to make sure their own fires are completely put out and not discard lighters, matches, or lit cigarettes on the ground where they may light. It is also necessary to remove dead and dry plants from forests periodically, since they are at most risk of becoming fire fuel. They can be removed manually or by controlled burns. Controlled burns are fires set on purpose and then put out to remove plant or gas fuel sources for fires, clear agricultural land for a new season, as well as restore ecosystem health through destruction of competing trees. Controlled burns are controversial because they can get out of control, cause fire-related pollution, and may not help a forest ecosystem in all cases. Another problem we can easily help reduce or maybe even eventually stop is pollution. Pollution is a man-made environmental problem we encounter in our environment. Pollution is an umbrella term for many different problems like acid rain, oil spills, or clogging of waterways with trash, among others. Pollution, its general definition, is when gases, smoke, trash, and chemicals are introduced into an environment they weren't meant to be in that causes harm to plants, animals, and people. There are 3 types of pollution based on where they occur: water, air, and land pollution. Water pollution is when trash and chemicals get into water and harm the ecosystem. Floating trash can clog up waterways and kill plants and animals that live there. Dangerous chemicals can also reduce the amount of fresh water we are able to drink if they get into the water supply and cannot be removed. When oil spills into water, it hurts every living creature that it interacts with, even the smallest creatures like algae. Oil and water do not mix. The oil just sits on top of the water and makes it hard for sunlight to get through. Fish and animals that go near the surface can get coated in the oil and get sick. According to sciencing.com, quote, "There are ways to clean up a spill, but most have a downside. Dispersants, a type of chemical, are the main cleanup tool. These break down oils into fragments that bacteria already live in the water can decompose. Dispersants, however, have a downside. They can further contaminate the environment. If there is enough oil, it can be burned. That usually leads to air pollution. When water is very calm, those in charge of cleaning the spill can skim oil off the top of water. Perhaps the best way to clean a spill is to use machines that can separate the oil and water. However, if a leak is ongoing, such as a machine may not be able to keep up the rate of contamination." End quote. Acid rain is water with a pH value lower than water. Acid rain has a pH around 4 or 5, while rainwater is around 7. When acidic chemicals get into water and lower the pH, it becomes acid rain. Acid rain can dissolve even metal statues over time. It can disappear on its own so long as there are no new chemicals in the water replacing it. Reducing the amount of chemicals that get into water and evaporate into clouds is the only way to help stop acid rain on our end. Air pollution is when toxic gases are let into the air. It can cause smog and problems with breathing and can be very dangerous for those who have lung problems like asthma. Smog is like a fog of dangerous gases that can sit over an area that produces a lot of the toxic gases and do not slow down enough for it to disperse. Areas with a lot of smog, like cities or factories, can also have acid rain. Cars, planes, and trains contribute to air pollution by burning gas and coal. The smoke that comes out of the back of cars and planes and the front of trains is the toxic gas that will enter the environment. When carbon dioxide, a gas commonly released by burning fuel, settles in the atmosphere, it traps sunlight more than it did before, like glass in a greenhouse. Gases that do this over time are called greenhouse gases and contribute to the overall warming of the planet over time. It is hard to reduce the amount of toxic gas released in the environment because vehicles that use it are necessary for people to get around very quickly. Some people do not believe that greenhouse gases are causing the planet to warm and will attempt to stop people who say otherwise. Due to these two factors, as well as not having a fast way to undo some of the warming gases already in the atmosphere, it is very hard to stop or reduce air pollution, but there are measures that have been taken by cities with bad smog to clear it up. Some things include putting filters over the exhaust pipes of vehicles to trap some of the more dangerous gases and prevent them from settling in the air, planting trees to absorb carbon dioxide and turn it into oxygen, as well as removing lead from gasoline. Land pollution is when trash and other toxic chemicals are disposed of in our environments. These chemicals and trash can later migrate to water and become water pollution. Landfills are areas where we dispose tons and tons of trash. A lot of trash is made from plastic or other materials that do not easily decompose. Because the trash does not decompose, it piles on until there's no more room in the landfill and it's necessary to make yet another area just for trash. Countries sometimes send their trash overseas to have it dumped there in exchange for money. The countries that accept this deal are often poorer countries with less people than the country making the trash. This may make it seem like those poor countries with fewer people have an enormous amount of waste, while the bigger and more wealthy country had less waste, even if that is not necessarily true. Ways we can avoid land pollution are by not littering, reusing materials that we may otherwise throw away, recycling plastic that we do throw away, and reducing the amount of trash that goes into landfills. Now, let's move on to environmental problems that we cannot control. A hurricane is a tropical cyclone with winds reaching above 74 miles per hour. If it is less than 39 miles per hour, the storm is called a tropical depression. They form in warm waters around 80 degrees Fahrenheit, like the Gulf of Mexico during the summer. When the warm water evaporates into humid air into clouds, the warm air forces upwards and the cooler air takes its place below. That air becomes warm and rises as well, and the storm grows. Winds that move in the same direction move the clouds and make the storm rotate. Hurricane season is the time of year where hurricanes are likely to form. It lasts from June 1st to November 30th, but most storms form closer to the fall. In the northern hemisphere, hurricanes rotate in a counterclockwise direction around the center part called the eye. In the southern hemisphere, it moves in the opposite direction. The eye is the calmest part of the storm with only light winds, but around the eye is the eye wall, where the worst and most powerful part of the storm is. Hurricanes are ranked on a 1 to 5 ranking, with 5 being the most dangerous and powerful storms. Hurricanes and other tropical cyclones are named people's names once they are strong enough to be, because it is easier to know which storms you're talking about that way. They start at a name beginning with A and rotate between the genders of the names. For example, the first bad storm of the season might be named Ashley, with the next storm being named Brian. One of the most devastating elements of a hurricane is the storm surges. As the hurricane spirals, water is pulled into the center of the storm in a big mound. When the mound reaches land, it can cause disastrous flooding on the coast. The water piles up and the storm carries it even farther on land because it cannot move anywhere but forward as more water comes in behind it. Areas with gradual sloping coastlines are at most risk of being devastated by a storm surge. Sea levels rise, wind, and the wave patterns all contributed to the damage a storm surge may cause. Some ways that we can help mitigate and prevent the damage a storm may cause is by using technology. Scientists who study weather are called meteorologists, and they use satellites to observe storms as they grow and use the information about temperature, size, and speed to predict the path the storm may take. With this information, people are able to prepare themselves for when the storm will reach them. Barrier islands along the Louisiana coast are also important in reducing the effect of a storm. While the islands do not have many inhabitants, they are vital for the survival of fish, animals, and people that live in Louisiana. The islands that protect the freshwater wetlands from seawater, but they also block the path of storms and soak up rain and flooding that may have otherwise hit an area with more people on it. Storms and rising sea levels erode the land that makes up the islands, and they get smaller until they do not exist. Water takes the place of the islands they used to take up, becoming more fuel to feed the growth of the storms. To prevent damage to our home before hurricanes come, we can use shutters over strong glass windows to prevent the winds from coming inside the house. We can also lift houses up onto stilts up high, but even raising a house 2 or 3 feet from the ground can prevent water from reaching the inside. It can be expensive to raise houses, buy new shutters, special glass, or repair damage from previous hurricanes and tropical cyclones, so it is often the homes of people with less money that are most damaged. Along with storm surges, the increased rainwater into rivers and sewage system can cause flooding. Where there is more water coming in than coming out of an area, it gathers together and causes a flood. Floods can make land soak up water and create unstable mud, which turns into a dangerous landslide. When rivers rise up too much, oftentimes part of the water will be allowed to leave it through a drainage canal along the river. This lowers the level of water in the river and can prevent it from overflowing. Large barriers on the sides of rivers called levees help prevent the water from overflowing as well. Dams are barriers that halt water and create a reservoir used for power and recreation along with flood mitigation as well. Something I have no experience with personally living in New Orleans are earthquakes. The Earth's crust and mantle is made from tectonic plates. Tectonic plates are like large puzzle pieces that do not always fit exactly together. Areas where they touch and rub against each other can become mountains and land. With large tectonic plates slip past each other, they can cause major earthquakes. Earthquakes do not have to be large to be earthquakes, though. Sometimes a much larger earthquake can have smaller earthquakes in front of it called foreshocks. After the big earthquake, the smaller ones after it are called aftershocks. Earthquakes are rated on a scale from 1 to 9, with 9 being the most devastating, and unlike the hurricane scale, earthquakes do not need to be measured in whole numbers. The number an earthquake is determined to be is called the magnitude. Earthquakes cannot be prevented, nor is it possible to predict them like we can with hurricanes. Despite that, it is possible to reduce the damage an earthquake might cause by reinforcing old foundations of building, keeping dishes inside cabinets, and using special earthquake racks and pads to keep furniture from shifting or falling over during an earthquake. All things can reduce damage to your home. To protect yourself, you should go below a strong point of your house like a doorway or below a desk for safety, anywhere that prevents you from getting smushed in case something falls on top of you. Activity time. Today we will be doing mind maps. Since I live in Louisiana, I have direct experience with hurricanes and flooding, so that is what my activity is going to focus on, but you can change it to one of the other topics that we focused on today as well. A mind map is a great way to figure out a topic and solution for a variety of purposes. You can use it to pick up a topic for essays, a subject to draw, or something simple like deciding what you want for dinner. To start, let's write a human topic that we can think about on this page. In this case, I'm going to write about hurricanes. You can represent it in any way you want so long as it makes sense to you. You can use pictures from magazines, the internet, or drawings or words. Now that it's in the center of my paper, I'm going to circle it and draw lines coming out of it. On the lines, I'm going to put solutions and then draw 2 more branches coming out. On one of the branches, I will represent the good parts of the solution, and the other, I will represent the bad parts. Do this for all the lines you put out, and use the mind map to decide which solution you think is best. It is up to you. You can use mind mapping in a lot of different ways. There are all sorts of different things that you can use them for. Some people use them for time management. Some other people use them to figure out what they want to think about when it comes to a different book that they have read. Sometimes they make it beautiful, like in these examples I'm about to show you. There are all sorts of different images that are used, drawings and pictures, and lots of different colors in order to make it make sense to them and be beautiful and artful.
This was a lot of information for a little activity, but I hope that you can use the mind map in all sorts of different situations where it may help you. If you have any things that you'd like to talk about or information that you need to know, send an email to info@communityworksla.org if you want to know more. Have a great day!